Well, good evening, everybody, to our virtual members meeting. This is forced upon us because of COVID, but there's a lot of advantages of it as well. We've got Craig and Dunblane, so he otherwise wouldn't be here. Jane, Hannah, in the town. So, and you don't have to come out on a horrible night like it is. I'm saying a lot because I'm getting an awful lot of feedback. I'm hearing myself twice. So I'll hand you over to Hannah, who's going to do a financial update. So Hannah.
Can you hear Hannah or not?
Is she on mute? No.
Is that me unmuted? Okay. So our highest sources of income so far this year are the sale of the assets at 160,000, giving us 26% of our income so far. Rentals of 153,000 have provided 25%, and the voted up donations from the subsidiaries relating to last year's profits of 123,000 equates to 20% of our income. The remaining 29% is coming from the gardens admissions and funding of 43,000, other income of 45,000, which covers things like the grants that are unrestricted, and 82,000 of project grants, which basically come in and go straight back out on the purpose that they were provided under. Offset with our income are our costs associated with running the trust. These mainly being the project costs to date of 268,000, some of which are covered by the restricted grant income mentioned. However, many of the projects are funded on an arrears basis. Therefore, we pay out the costs then first and then reclaim the funds after the spend has taken place. So the cost of these often significantly outweigh the money coming in for some time until claims have been submitted, and often projects have been completed and signed off completely. Luckily, the Trust is in a much stronger position in the last couple of years to be able to cope with the negative cash flow impact for these short periods of time before the funding is then reimbursed back to us. Staffing costs are our next largest expense at 132,000, making up 24% of our overall spend, and overheads of 60,000 being 11%, and housing and estate maintenance costs of 44,000 equating to 8%. 35,000 has been spent on Acamore Gardens. Again, much of this was through funding already reported on the income side, making up 7% of our outgoings, with the final 1% relating to loan interest, which in monetary terms equates to 5,000 so far this year. Our external loans outstanding at the end of October is now under 516,000. The sale of a property at the start of the financial year allowed us to clear off Nationwide Loan 2 in full in May and make a further payment of 32,000 towards Loan 1, overall reducing our external debt by nearly 171,000 since the start of the new financial year. 17 properties are still held against security under the trust loans with Nationwide and Triodos. And we've started repaying the Bank of Scotland bounce back loan, which we took out last year in May. We continue to work towards our goal of reducing our external debt to below 500. And as you can see, we're now close to reaching this target. GTL. We set the moorings and pontoons budget quite low this year, just with the aftermath of COVID and the uncertainty with lockdowns and restrictions. We weren't sure what would be in place this year. So thankfully, we were much busier in summer than we could have hoped for, which has helped bring in a much needed financial injection into the business above what we had forecast. Obviously, we still have the winter months to get through and the costs associated with the moorings and the pontoons upkeep, but believe we'll finish this year ahead of where we had predicted. We have a healthy bank balance in GTL, and the campsite is coming along as planned, and funding is being replaced via our grant claims very quickly, after being spent, so our cash risk is relatively low in this company. GGPL. This part of our community business is not doing so well. Unfortunately, the turbine has been down now since the middle of November last year. It originally went off with a leakage current fault. This was routinely picked up during the yearly service and grease schedule. Enercon technicians were then over umpteen times between November and June, and the turbine finally started turning, albeit at a reduced capacity at the end of June. There continues to be issues with the pole shoes, and these parts were ordered months and months ago. However, these have only just become available to us in the last few weeks, and the technicians are now in the process of getting these fitted and turned back to full capacity. The delay in getting this repaired and back up and running fully has been blamed on COVID-19. Between restrictions in place, shortage of Enercon staff, and ultimately in recent months, the parts not being available. As much as this is an extremely frustrating, not only for the GGPL and their directors, we appreciate this is also frustrating for many members of the Trust. And we can assure you that that we are in regular contact with Enercon to keep the pressure on, and we're in supportive talks with our lenders, Triodos and insurance providers, Bruce Stevenson, to ensure we keep them fully updated with the situation, and we will keep pushing this until we can get the turbine fully operational again, which we really hope will be before Christmas based on the technician repair schedules that we've received earlier this week. Grell. These three turbines, albeit much older and smaller than the single Enercon, are doing well, and we have seen little issues with these recently. We've earned approximately £65,000 in ROCs since the start of the new financial year, and we've managed to donate £2,246,000 to local community funds so far this year. Grell's bank balance is also healthy just now, even after donating 77,000 voted up donations, from last year's profits to IGHT. So our overall summary of IGHT and the subsidiaries has a net cash position at the end of October, a net debt cash position, of 487,000, which, although is greater than at the end of March last year, March 21, this can be explained by having received virtually no income so far this year for GGPL with the turbine being down, coupled with the number of projects currently underway with funding claims waiting to be received back into the bank from money we've already subsidised and paid out, something which we certainly wouldn't have been managed to be able to fund short term a few years ago.
Was great, and hopefully everybody understands that clearly and how we're improving. So I'd like to hand you over to Andy Clemens, our Estates Manager, now for his report.
On the housing, okay. Property sold in May 2021. We sold off Gala Hill House earlier on in the year, and we've also got the only other one we've got to sell off in the near future will be Canera Farmhouse, which was agreed, and that's all the properties that we'll be selling off, excuse me, and all that money is going back to debt reduction. We've got two rental properties available just now, where we have Creamery Cottage and Croft 3 and 4. At the moment, the maintenance team are busy getting them all cleaned up, repainting, and just making sure they're all good to go out. At the moment, it's likely that one of these will be held back for the campsite manager. At the moment, we're not sure which ones, but as soon as we know, we'll get the other one up and ready for rental. Rent increases in April 2021, and will go up again in April 2022 by £15 a month on each property. This has also helped with the boiler repairs, septic tank emptying. The boilers this year were serviced on all the residential properties by Gary Gardner, kind of roughly around about May time. 2 of the boilers were identified as needing replaced. So these have now been replaced and signed off and completed. Septic tanks were a little later this year. Septic tank services have been very, very busy. That's now been done and they're all emptied, and there was no issues with any as far as we know at the moment. The smoke alarms, I think many of you will be aware that with the new government guidelines, all properties, all residential and rental properties have to have a linked fire alarm system. We currently have most of our properties, they're already interlinked, but what we will need to do is replace the heads on them. So what we'll probably do, either myself or the maintenance team will be around, we'll need to identify how many there are in each property and what type of head they are, and we'll need to get those ordered. Any ones that aren't interlinked, what we'll be doing, we'll be buying 3 to 4, depending on the size of the property, Bluetooth enabled alarms, and basically they react just exactly the same as the other ones. It just means we don't need to start digging holes in the ceilings and walls. So that'll be happening, you know, in the very new year. Estates, within the estates this year, the board identified 5 potential plots for sale. We've had quite a few issues with these, obviously with the epidemic, prices of building materials and everything. People that had been interested, unfortunately, have now backed out. There's 1 or 2 still interested, and we'll just need to wait and see what's happening there. During COVID as well, we had quite a few people contacting us looking for additional areas of land within just a short distance or beside their garden. These were identified, measured, and we had DM holes. They did the valuations on them. That was then taken to the board, either approved or disapproved, whatever. But in the end, we sold 4 areas of land. This year we've spent £25,500 on fencing. This was done at Acamore, South Drumacrow, back of the golf course, and Drummondmoor. We would have liked to have done more, but unfortunately, same again with prices of fencing and everything. The price we actually went over our budget. So we're looking to hopefully get another fencing plan in place for next year. We've also had a few issues with the play park. You may or may not have noticed, but there's some some of the wooden parts have started rotting at the edges. It's been identified by the insurance company as well, so we've found out what parts we needed and went back to Russell Leisure, who originally put the play park in. These parts, unfortunately, are French, so it's cost us a lot of money to get these parts ordered and delivered, and it was in excess of £5,000, and we're looking at hopefully getting those done maybe before Christmas, if not in the very early new year. As many of you know, we've had 1 or 2 issues with the felling licenses, which hasn't helped the woodland policy. So what we did is we agreed about a year ago to look at doing a long-term forestry plan. I was in talks with a gentleman, Gordon Brown from Tree Story, and we've now had to cancel him 3 times now. He was supposed to be here this week, but same again with COVID. Unfortunately, their office in Edinburgh was hit by COVID, so we've had to cancel again. So that is being looked at and kind of rearranged for about February, March time. So fingers crossed that'll happen, and then we'll kind of get things moving with them. But with the tree felling, with the current path networks going on just now, part of the planning, the tree felling is included in that, so that's why you'll see some trees getting felled here and there. The other issue we had this year was the pump house in the gardens. Now this houses the pump for pumping the water up to the top tank in the gardens, and that is the water supply for Ackamore House and the gardens. Just with the weather in kind of February, with the wind and the rain and a bit of rot in the roof as well, unfortunately the roof collapsed. We've now made that safe in the time being, but because it's within the area of Ackamore House, which is B listed, we've had to go through planning to see what kind of roof we can replace that with, whether it's going to be slate or whether we can do it in tin. But same again, we're just waiting to hear back from them. Other than that, the big lottery approached us back beginning of last year, and they have now removed all the securities on the island that they held. And this is them recognizing the positive direction Gear is taking, and the 20th anniversary soon approaching. So all the securities on the houses, which was held by the big lottery, has now been lifted. So that's been a big boost for the board. And that's it just now. Same again, what I shall say is, as I always say, if you've any issues, please let us know directly at the office, because we don't know, we can't read your minds. So if there's an issue, let us know in the office and we'll get it sorted as soon as. Other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy, for that. Playing musical chairs in here. So the next one on the list was CJ, but unfortunately CJ can't be with us tonight. Oh,
It's not.
oh sorry, the list is inaccurate. It's Craig. It's next from the Paths. So can I hand it over to you, Craig? You hear me, Craig? And Craig muted.
Okay, thanks very much, Ian. Yes, just an update on the Gateway to GIA project, project I'm very excited about. And just for those of you who don't know, it's funded by the Low Carbon Travel and Transport Challenge Fund and the National Lottery Heritage Fund. So basically, I'd like to talk about these core aims that are in front of you just now. Possibly the two main aims are at the top there: improving access, and this is to be done through the improvement and creation of a series of paths for walkers and cyclists. We've got a commitment to produce 9 kilometres of paths, but if all goes well, we'll be hitting probably the 12-kilometre mark by the time we're finished. The second main aim would be improving the heritage interpretation. And this involves installing a series of interpretation boards and wayfinders in association with the paths. And it'll be supported by a website, heritage interpretation on the website. We're also providing 10 e-bikes for hire, which will improve the access and give opportunities to cyclists. We have got 7 out of 10 of them. They've all been purchased. We still have to look at adaptive e-bikes and doing that currently. There's also a heritage conservation project, which is hopefully going to involve the community, give them some opportunities to get trained so that they can become stewards of the heritage features of the island. And we're also providing training, especially for young people, and a series of public events and working with schools also. So to focus on the paths, first of all, there are 2 main types of paths. One's is kind of shared use or a lowland path, sort of based on a type 1 aggregate with a dust topping compacted, so good for walkers and cyclists. And there's a number of them that comprise most of phase 1. And in fact, phase 1 is all those kinds of paths. In phase 2, we'll be doing a further aggregate path, a easy access path through the gardens, but also starting to roll out the upland paths, which are kind of natural surface, but you know, with some stepping stones and pitch stone, some boardwalks in places to upgrade routes that are already in existence and create new routes. So later on, there will be a phase 3, and we're looking at that now. One of the sort of core paths there will be going from the campsite up to, and joining the road north. And so we're hoping to get a bit of a scoping visit out there to have a look and see the possibilities there. So, but for the upland routes, we've got a number of loops planned: a southern loop, western link, a northern loop, and a few linear routes going to key heritage features such as the Ogham Stone, the Dunhewy Fort, Fisherman's Cave, and the North Cairn. So on the map you can see there, we've got an indication of the southern half of the network with the shared paths shown in blue and the naturalized surface paths in green. Yeah, that's good for that one. We'll talk about stone, the provision of stone for our aggregate paths, which has been a major consideration and, you know, one of the main achievements, I think, of the project so far. We looked at a number of different ways of procuring stone. We looked at bringing them in by truck and ferry, but given the large amount of stone we'd need, there was going to be 2,700 tonnes for phase 1 alone, plus provision of another 500 tonnes for subsequent phases. That would have required approximately 133 truckloads to come across in the ferry, each time taking up about 6, maybe 8, I don't know how many car spaces, but a number of car spaces certainly. And during the summer, it just seemed like something that was not really a great option. It also was the cost ramped up. So we looked at using our own quarry on the island. There are a number of issues came along there that perhaps made it not such a great option. And once again, the cost element, because it would have had to still be supplemented by some stone being imported from elsewhere. So by far the best option turned out to be shipping in direct from Glensanda quarry. And we're very fortunate to have Colin Campbell in the islands with Campbell Marine Contracts, who basically managed this aspect of the project. You can see in the pictures there a ship called the CEG Cosmos, which brought in 4 800-ton loads of aggregate and dust topping to the South Pier, and that went in onward transport to a stockpile and then onto some of the path sites where it's needed via these tracked dumpers. So yeah, so we've started, thankfully, because of the success of that operation, to make good progress on the paths. You can see a couple of pictures there. One of them is the Garve path, and the other is the Achamore path, which goes from, well, I think some of you might have walked it already, but it's about 1.5 kilometers in length. It's got great views out to the west and a really nice route. And we're pleased with how things are panning out there. So that's 2 out of the 4 paths in phase 1. The other 2 are imminent. We've got them ready to go. And then in terms of phase 2, we're sort of quite far down the route there, in that we've created the specs and the maps, and we have gone through the tendering process. We have a couple of contractors to whom we're about to award the contract. So we're getting ready to move on that score as well. And also the phase 3 kind of is in the planning phase, and we're still, as I said, we're looking at the exact routes there. So that's good for that one, thanks. Yeah, in terms of the heritage interpretation, we're working with our contractors at Lateral North and Lucidity Media, who have created an interpretation strategy for us, and we're working to that, and that is informing the the design of the interpretation panels, the wayfinders, and we're working on the text, and various drafts have been put forward now, which we're having a look at. So at the bottom there, you can see an example of one of the interpretation panels, which we're planning to put on these stone plinths. And there's going to be 7 of those around the island at key points, introducing that part of the island and all the heritage features that are there. And in some locations, maybe 13 or 14, we're going to have these wayfinders, which give some more focused information about some key heritage features, such as Carnban and the Fisherman's Cave, to name just a couple. So plans are rolling out there, and hopefully these will start to appear before too long. There's a community heritage project as well, still on the subject of the heritage features we have. The aim of that is to build community capacity to manage the heritage assets. So it'll be quite a strong training element there. People will be given the chance to train an archaeological survey. We see the Ogham stone there, and we have a number of partners who are interested in coming in on this project. Archaeology Scotland are likely to be involved. They will provide us with some training. Historic Environment Scotland might work with us to create some events. There might be some drama around some of the heritage stories and traditions of the island. And also we have interest from the University of Glasgow, in particular to do with the Ogham stone. They're looking to have a look at the engravings on it, and also as part of that, they will offer us a training workshop in 3D digital recording, so we can record other monuments as well and have them accessible on 3D imagery. So that's all quite exciting. And as I mentioned at the start too, we have our e-bikes purchased. There's a picture of one of them there, one of the 7 that have been delivered, with the other 3 coming soon. And there'll be also training available for a few people who will be involved in the operation, so that we can maintain these bikes ourselves. I also mentioned at the start that making inquiries about adaptive e-bikes, so we're hoping to sort of give access opportunities to people of all abilities. So we're just looking to get the right balance of adaptive e-bikes there, and I think we're getting near decisions on that front. And that just really leaves the public events, the training, schools projects, which Casey Joe, our ranger, is leading. And I believe Wiley, stepping in for Casey Joe, might tell us a bit about it shortly. But that's all for me. Thank you very much.
That update and the pass are really exciting. Something to be there for a long time. So CJ was planned to be next, but she unfortunately can't be with us to do it tonight. So Bryony has been given the job of reading out her report. So I'm going to pass you over to Bryony for Casey Joe's report.
Hi everyone, lovely to be here. As Ian says, unfortunately CJ can't join us tonight, so hopefully I'll be able to answer any questions you have about the Ranger Service. So CJ joined us just over a year ago, and she has done a fantastic job getting a Ranger Service up and running, and she really is feels it's a privilege that she's been allowed to set up a Ranger Service from scratch. Volunteering, she's had a lot of volunteering support this year. So from between April and September, she's had 84.5 volunteer hours donated to the project. That's through beach cleans, path maintenance, bird and water surveys, invasive species removal, and general patrols of all of our lovely sites. Of those 84 hours, 17 were from visitors, and the rest were made up by you, the fantastic residents. So she wanted me to pass on her thanks to you and to everyone who came and gave her a hand this year. It's been great having you along. If you'd like to get involved next year, just give CJ a shout. an advance notice that she's planning to run a tree planting volunteer session in January or February. So keep an eye out for the posters and get involved if you can. In terms of events, CJ has managed to run 10 events and also ran weekly guided walks from May to September. For those events, she's had 158 participants, which is fantastic. 24 of those were visitors, all of which were on the guided walks, and some came along to help with some of the other events. She'd love to see a few more of our island residents on the guided walks. So she's looking at particular seasonal and themed walks. And if you have any suggestions of walks you'd like to take or locations you'd like to get to, do let her know and she'll try and make that happen. She's also hoping to be working with the school on their outdoor Monday afternoon sessions, looking at the link between the science curriculum and nature in the next year. CJ has set up and run 3 training courses for residents, primarily aimed at developing skills in young people and keeping those skills on the island. We managed to run dry stone diking, first aid in the outdoors, and a full chainsaw course. All of those courses were at maximum capacity, which was fabulous. And in the new year, we're looking to run another chainsaw course because some people actually weren't able to attend the one we've just had. So again, thanks to everyone who joined us. One of the important facets of CJ's job is biological recording and finding out what we actually have on the island. As it was the first year of doing this, she can't identify any trends yet, but it's a really good baseline to start off from. And on the slide, you'll see the number of species within each group that were recorded. A few notable sightings were a sea eagle, white-tailed sea eagle, being recorded around the village and at the north end in September. The very first record on Gia for breeding long-eared owls, which was actually outside CJ's bedroom window, which was an impressive one. She found that, I think, at 2 in the morning. And she recorded 85 butterflies on the weekly transects during July, including massively declining species such as grayling butterflies. Another facet to the ranger service is managing and giving visitors a really good experience. So there was a bit of experimentation this year, especially with the number of visitors being significantly higher due to staycations. The signage used to highlight the suitability of some of the tracks or unsuitability of some of the smaller tracks was relatively well received, and the dedicated motorhome area at the north end received very positive feedback for the amount of space, the view, the provision of a waste tank, and the notifications about the site in the leaflets and posters. A few negative comments included the lack of comfort facilities, but hopefully when our new campsite is in place, those will be remedied. It's really hard to say this year whether the leaflets or signage for environmental behaviours were effective, but the bins were incredibly well used this year, and she didn't encounter a great deal of discarded litter, which was really good. Recently, she's installed a new welcome hut down at the ferry, which will house COVID and visitor signage, leaflets about the island, as well as sanitising stations, and house the Hebridean whale trail sign. COVID recovery funding from Nature Scot, which has allowed her to purchase beach bins, those are in place for residents to use over the winter period. But her plan for next year is to remove these bins before the visitor season to see if we can encourage people to take litter home with them more often, as is stated in the Scottish Outdoor Access Code. And that's very similar to the setup we have at Acamore, where we have very few littering issues and no bins. A couple of other involvements she's been working on this year. She's been working in collaboration with Hannah Story from the shop to introduce a forest school, and they had their first session for that this month, which was much fun. She's hoping to provide a relaxed way to get families outdoor and do something a little bit different and help build confidence, team working and social skills for young people. She's planning for these to run every month and they'll have a different theme, so just let her know if you'd like to get involved. She's also been working as part of her job description to reduce Gia's carbon footprint, so has become involved with the new community group Zero Carbon Gia, which is a community-led way to make positive changes to the environment. They're hoping to hold their first community event in January, so watch out for the notices. It'd be great to see lots of you there. And finally, she's been working with Scottish Islands Federation on their Marine Litter Working Group. This is a group of 10 representatives from all 6 island regions across Scotland, and works firstly with the Scottish Government's Marine Scotland Science to develop an island-specific data gathering model, because the islands don't seem to fit into nationwide data schemes, partly due to collection issues. They're also working with the Marine Conservation Society to deliver training on how to collect data and, more importantly, make use of it as individuals and groups. And they're exploring options to appoint a marine litter coordinator to take forward ideas from the working group and ensure that islands are able to keep their beaches and seas as clean as possible through funding and government involvement. Final message from CJ is here's to next year, and thank you very much. And I look forward to she's looking forward to her second year in post.
Thank you, Brian, for CJ's report. And no rest for you, so it's your chance to do the garden report. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you very much. Hang on one second. There we go. So gardens report. 2 seconds, just having a technical issue getting my screen to move. There we go. So we've done also very well for volunteers this year. Since the start of the year, so January 2021, we've benefited from 412 volunteer hours, which, when you consider the impacts of COVID on all of us, is quite extraordinary. Almost all of those have been from the island residents. So personal thanks from me for your time, your commitment and your hard work. I have a goal for next year to make it 500 volunteer hours, so do get involved if you want to. There's also been a lot of hard work from the gardens team, and that's seen some great improvements in the garden, notably to the walled garden, the summer house area, and general upkeep of the garden as a whole. And again, my personal thanks to Morgan, Maggie, Tim, Richard for his grass cutting skills, and the 2 Kickstarters we've had this year, Finn and Casper. I hope you'll agree that they've done a fantastic job working in the gardens this year. 1 second. We've had quite big increases in visitor numbers and visitor income, even compared to 2019, so the last year pre-pandemic. In 2019, we had £26,700 of income from the Honesty Box and coaches and other pre-book groups. That split was roughly 97.5% from the Honesty Box and 2.5% from coaches. 2021 to date, so bear in mind this is only 7 months from the start of the financial year, we've taken £31,871. Only 34% of that came from the Honesty Box, but 57% has come from the new contactless card reader that we've installed, which only went into service in the middle of June. We've also had quite an increase in coaches and other groups, with 9% of our income coming from those. I think that is a fantastic result for the gardens, and we hope to see that increase continuing in future years as word of the improvement goes round. It's also been really nice to see other groups from the community start to use the gardens again, including the school and other organisations, as we've started to ease up lockdown. So if you'd like to use the garden for your group, just let us know. You'll also have noticed that our new coach park funded by HIE has been completed, and it's been well used and appreciated by the coach drivers over the summer, who've commented that it's much easier to have a dedicated space for them to get in and out of. And we've also finished the Royal Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh have finished their major survey of the woody plant collection within the gardens. It was completed over the summer, and we're just waiting for the finalised report from them, but I'm hoping that won't be too long. And finally, we've also had landscape architects recruited to help us create a kind of design master plan for Acamore. They're not trying to design any specific compartment. It's more to give us an overview of design plans in the future for Acamore, to make sure that we don't do something really out of keeping with the style and feel of the gardens. In 2021, we've also held a number of events, and they've been really, really well attended. So we kicked off the summer season with our residents' picnic, which was really well supported by the community. And our thanks to Ken and Zella and everyone at the hotel for the lovely picnic they provided us. It was a great way to celebrate the end of a long winter and the coming out of lockdown. Recently, we've held a bulb planting weekend, and 11 residents came out to help us. Believe it or not, in the space of one weekend, we got more than 1,000 bulbs planted. And overall, volunteers and the garden team have now planted 8,000 bulbs in the walled garden and wider site. So Acamore should be blooming lovely next spring. Soon we'll be hosting the 2nd annual Christmas Light Up Walk, after the success of last year's walk that the school ran last year. So we're delighted to be hosting that again. It'll be bigger, better and brighter this year, and we'll include an evening session for the wider island to come and enjoy the decorations, along with refreshments in the walled garden. There'll be more details coming out about that soon. And I've been representing and promoting the garden at a number of local and international events to help spread the word that Acamore is back in business and that we're busy restoring such a fabulous garden. Those have included Scottish Rhododendron Conference and also the International Rhododendron Symposium, full of lots of very experienced gardeners. So moving on to 2022, we've already started planning events for next year. A few highlights of what to look forward to. We're going to introduce a regular programme of guided walks from April to October. So do let us know if there's a particular aspect of the garden you think we should do a walk on. We're also hoping to have the second residents' picnic. It was such a good way to sort of celebrate the start of the season, and it'd be lovely for us to do that again and give you the chance to enjoy your garden before the season starts. And I'm planning a Halloween walk this year. I say I'm planning, I'm not a great writer, so we're looking for a keen writer to help us develop a suitably scary story for that walk. If you've got what it takes to scare the bejesus out of people, please get in touch. And with the pandemic easing and more of us being vaccinated, we're really hoping to be able to start monthly group volunteering sessions for you to help out in the garden, learn a bit more about gardening skills, and finally be able to socialise with other volunteers at the same time. And our last event that we have planned for next year is we are doing an open day for Scotland's Garden Scheme on the 21st of May. That's a charity fundraising scheme that works across the whole of Scotland with both private and public gardens. And each garden nominates a charity of their choice that the funds from that day go towards. And this year we've nominated Gia Village Hall because they've been such good supporters of us while we've been getting going again. Other exciting plans for 2022 include partnering with an organisation called Candide for e-ticketing, which will allow people to book tickets to come to the garden before they even land on the island. It's a really good way of having completely cash-free ticketing, and Candide are extremely good at promoting the gardens that they work with. So it's another way of us, again, promoting Acamore to the wider Scotland and beyond. We're about to start clearance works in the Maccabianum Wood, which is the area, the very overgrown area near the pond. Similar to the first garden last year, we'll be clearing through, reopening paths, sorting out the drainage. And I'm hopeful that we'll get this done in time to reopen it to you and the public in time for Easter. As part of the Gateway to Gear project, some of our paths are going to be resurfaced to create an easy access path, which will give more people the opportunity to see some of Acamore's special parts. And we're also planning to reopen the visitor cabin. Our apprentice in the gardens, Morgan, and CJ, our countryside ranger, are both going to work on the refresh of that in the new year. So again, hopefully open in time for Easter. Our plant quarantine area is going to be up and running for 2022, and you'll also see new signage start to appear. We have new signage to replace the old tired sign at the visitor entrance, a new interpretation board at the visitor cabin, and hopefully some new signage for the car park as well. And we're also installing some beam counters on the entrance path. So these are infrared beams that simply count people going in and out of the gardens. It will help us to better understand our visitor numbers and check that our honesty box is maximising our income. I'd like to get the garden steering group restarted, so get in touch again if you'd like to join that. And as Andy mentioned, the Woodlands Management Plan will include the gardens to make sure that we are looking after our woods and shelter belts as best we can. And we're also going to be working on a few funding applications for a couple of exciting projects. I can't tell you too much at the moment, but keep your ears to the ground and we'll give you more details when we can. And finally, we're starting up a residents and visitors survey, and we would really appreciate your help to shape some of our priorities for garden facilities. So when that comes out, I'd be really grateful if you could send that in to us. So once again, thank you so much for all of the support you've given us this year, and I look forward to another good year in the gardens.
Thank you, Bryony, for that, and for yourself and your team, the excellent work you're doing in the gardens. It's great to see. I mean, I know as a trust we're investing more in the gardens that's been done since Colonel Horlick's day, and I think it's really starting to show.
So thank you for that, Bryony. So pass you over to Jane now, our Business Development Manager, for her report. Over to you, Jane.
Thanks, Ian. So I'm just going to do an update on some of the other projects that are happening on the island. Craig and Bryony have already covered quite a lot already, but I'll give you an update on some of the others that are ongoing. So starting with the campsite project, so hopefully you've seen that the build has begun. The works are going well and we are on track for the build to be complete towards the end of February. And this is providing we don't run into any delays over the winter period or with lack of materials. So fingers crossed we keep progressing and have the build complete for the end of February. We recently advertised for the campsite manager position and received a high volume of interest. At the moment, we are still shortlisting, so hopefully in the new year we will be able to recruit somebody and have them in position for March ahead of the site opening for the spring season. The building that's being constructed at the moment, this is the main facilities building, which will host the showers, toilets, accessible facilities and reception area. There's still a lot of landscaping to be done, so there will be a hard standing area for motorhomes and have the site a bit more attractive looking. There's the chemical waste tank that's at the north end of the island at the moment for the temporary site will be moved to the new site down near the ferry, and this just ensures that all the motorhome facilities are within the one place. Moving on to the hub, so as you may know, we received a porter cabin from Scottish Salmon Company, which we then decided to use as our community hub. We were looking at options to have the porter cabin cladded just to make it a bit more tidy and attractive looking. However, we don't currently have the funds available to do this, so we are looking to just paint it, make it a bit tidier and look at cladding it in the future. At the moment, we are purchasing equipment for the porter cabin. This is being funded through the CalMac award of £2,000. So the hub will still host gym equipment and also a small social area for people to meet up. In terms of housing, we're still continuing to progress plans for 5 new houses on the site adjacent to the craft units. This includes 3 2-bed bungalows and 2 1-bed cottage flats. The properties are being designed to meet varying needs, including fully accessible wheelchair standards. The construction of the build is due to go out to tender at the end of this year, so we hope to receive bids early next year, which will then allow us to submit our funding applications. So all the funding cannot be applied for until we have the tenders, which we, like I say, we hope to get in the new year. Once the funding situation is confirmed, we'll have a better idea of timescales for the build phase. So we will keep you updated on how that progresses. We've also got the activity centre. We were recently awarded just over 75,000 from the Island Communities Fund. So this funding is allowing us to purchase 10 e-bikes, which are in addition to the 10 e-bikes that Craig mentioned for the Gateway to Gia project. So this means we'll have 20 e-bikes to hire from the activity centre. The e-bikes are of varying sizes to ensure that we're catering for as many people as possible. And as Craig mentioned, we're also looking at adaptive e-bikes through the Gateway project. However, the standard bikes that are currently in the activity centre will also still be available for hire. The funding that I just mentioned will also allow us to get an electrical connection to the activity centres, because currently there's no electrical supply or water supply to the centre. So we'll get an electrical connection, and we're also looking to install solar panels on the roof there. So we do currently have an architect and energy consultant reviewing options for us at the moment. Moving on to our marketing update. We recently recruited Carly Robertson, who's our marketing Scot grad. Carly has been working with our website designers to build the new Visit Gia website, which will be a dedicated site for visitor information. Carly has been approaching local businesses to ensure that details about these businesses are up to date. And if you haven't already been in touch with Carly, please do so that we can ensure we're representing your business as well as possible. The website's also going to include some information on the visitor management, similar to the posters that were displayed on the island this year and the leaflet that was produced. Carly's also going to be creating new social media channels that will work in conjunction with the new website. So these social media channels will promote local businesses, activities, attractions, all the things that visitors want to see. So yeah, Carly will be creating content calendars that ensure all the businesses are spotlighted on a regular basis and all equally represented. So again, if you haven't spoken to Carly already, she will mention this and she will ask if you're happy for us to create content or if you'd like to create your own content for the website. So yeah, please do get in touch if you haven't already. So once the Visit Gia platform's up and running, the existing Gia website is going to be turned into just a community platform. So it will host all information about the trust and community activities, as well as the island heritage and whatnot. And Carly has also been working with our marketing partners to ensure that all the information about Gia that's online is starting to be a bit more streamlined and up to date. So the likes of Visit Scotland, Explore Kintyre, Hebridean Whale Trail, Scottish Island Passport and so on. Carly's been spending a lot of time trying to make sure that everything that you see about Gia online is consistent. So yeah, we hope to have the new Visit Gia website launched in the new year. The logo which you see on the screen at the moment, it's going to be our Visit Gia logo. It's not replacing the Trust logo, it's purely for visitor purposes, visitor marketing. And we are going to be using that brand throughout our leaflets, website, social media channels, posters, and so on. So hopefully you'll start to see a bit of consistency across any visitor marketing. Finally, for myself, I just thought it'd be useful for members to kind of get an overview of the funding that has been secured to help deliver all of these projects. So most of the projects that we've spoke about tonight or their funding that has been sourced for them is listed on the screen. So yeah, it's fantastic the amount of funding that has been made available to the Trust over the last couple of years. Just to note that the funding listed doesn't include business support that we receive from HIE. So we do still receive the Delivery Resource Grant from Highlands and Islands Enterprise, as well as funding towards the Scott Grad Post. We also receive support from HIE through their framework. So this allows us to do options appraisals, feasibility studies, business plans, and so on. The funding listed also doesn't include the support we receive from the National Trust for Scotland. We get an annual grant from NTS to help with the sustaining the Horlicks collection at Acamore Gardens. And this also excludes the extensive COVID-related funding that we received in the last year. So yeah, lots of funding has been made available to the Trust, and it's yeah, it's been a good year in securing funds. And that's all from me. And I think we have set aside time for a board question and answer session. So if anybody has any questions, you can use the raise hand function. So you should have a bar at the bottom of the screen with an icon to use the raise hand function or the chat box. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions.
Thanks very much for that, Jane. That's us. I mean, I was going to do a kind of summary of the year, but you've really heard it all from everybody, and great thanks to everybody who's contributed tonight and the whole Gia team. I mean, all the garden staff and everybody else as well. It's been an interesting year. Biggest challenge has been the turbine being down. That's been biggest financial. It's helped made up slightly by the STV money, greater income than we were expecting from the gardens and the pontoons. That's helped slightly. If the insurance claims come through for turbines, that will make a big difference to us. But all the projects we've been trying to get going, it's now they're starting to actually happen. Campsite buildings there, the paths are going to be really good. The gardens, the housing project, that's still to start. And there are many other smaller projects, as you've heard tonight. So it's really quite an exciting time for Gia. Things are really starting to happen now. So do we have any questions through yet? So any questions, if you don't have a question tonight, anyone's after watching this, because it can be upviewed at any time, just send into Trust office, email, letter, whatever, and we'll try and answer as best as we can. Nothing, nobody yet to. So
Yeah.
any member of that can ask at any time. And just if there is no question just now, then just thank everybody else for their support, because the volunteers and just general support has been fantastic. I mean, it keeps us all going through the challenging times, because virtually every day there's another issue to be resolved. But it's what keeps us going, and it's very appreciated, the support we get. And I know everybody likes to see their island develop. Some maybe not like change, but we need to evolve. And I think generally it's great for the island, and we're being recognised for that, and our help from Highlands and Islands and many others is fantastic. So if there is no questions, then I could just maybe bring the meeting to a close. Anybody else got anything to add? Anything, Jane?
No, I think that's everything.
No.
From all of us.
Okay. Well, thanks very much to everybody, and good night.